So this morning's session is about the roadmap to 2035. And that's important because 2035, the UK is at 68% reduction in carbon emissions per target, and that's not insignificant. So we've got a couple of speakers to kick off the session this morning, and then we'll have a bit of a panel discussion. So our first speaker is Alistair. I only know Alistair because he coached one of our Cambridge researchers. So, but he's very involved to SRF and to the SRF family. So thank you very much for coming along. And you're going to talk about how digital innovations can influence the transition. So this is very close to my heart. Some of you may know we've got a big digital project at Area 4. It's a national project for the digitalisation of decarbonisation of transport, so all modes of transport. So I'm really interested to hear what you've got to say. Good. So over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Rob. I was hoping you'd save that to the end, but I appreciate it. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, brilliant. Well, good morning, everybody. I hope everyone is in fine fettle and not too much excesses from last night. A great night, what a venue. Great food. The lamb was insanely good. I had to dash off before the pudding, but I've been assured by Jonathan the pudding was. Did you have mine as well?
I did, yeah. Upstairs, unfortunately.
Did you? Well, sharing is caring, Jonathan. Sharing is caring. Good. So obviously following on from yesterday, lots of great discussions, interesting topics. I hope I can serve you up to a similar quality of insight today. You guys can be the judges of that, of course. I would like to thank certainly David and the organisers for inviting me along, and also offering up service to Chris to the Zeus, which is much appreciated. So it's certainly the next 30 minutes we'll talk a little bit about what we do at Zeus and how we believe Zeus and other digital innovators can influence this transition to carbon zero. Certainly it's a topic of great importance. We discussed that yesterday. I think the pressure on that transition is growing greater by the day. I think SRF's little brother COP28 is obviously discussing similar things in a sort of slightly salubrious location of Dubai. However, I do think the University of Cambridge wins the venue, to be fair, over Dubai, partly because it's obviously an epicenter of education and research over many years. And I think you can all take inspiration from the surroundings. Cambridge has produced a lot of iconic figures, important figures over history, and I want to name just a few. Bear with me on this. Francis Bacon, an alumni of Cambridge. He led the advancement of both natural philosophy and the scientific method. We've got Charles Darwin, the man behind our understanding of evolution. John Maynard Keynes, his ideas fundamentally changed the theory and practice of macroeconomics and the economic policy of governments. John Milton, often touted as England's greatest ever author. Jawaharlal Nehru, considered the architect of modern India. Alan Turing, widely considered the father of theoretical computer science and AI, and then of course Isaac Newton and Stephen Hawking, both of which need no introduction. And I could probably spend the next hour reading off 100 other iconic alumni coming out of Cambridge University. But why have I picked those 8 individuals? Well, I think in order for us to tackle the climate issue, which we've been discussing, I think we're going to need to take some inspiration from the world of science, from evolution, economics and government policy, creating an impactful and an achievable narrative, creating landscape which is consistent in line, and of course we'll all need some serious brain power in order to tackle this, but the brain power is clearly in front of us. So good. Here we go. Start off as we. Excellent. Good. So, my name is Alistair Lindsay. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Zeus Labs. I read naval architecture and ocean engineering at the University of Glasgow a few years back, not too many, despite the lack of hair and grey hair. But after graduating from university, I dived into the world of transport. That's more by luck than by judgment, I would say. I went from Glasgow to AP Moller Maersk, so a large Danish transport business. I spent 11 years in a variety of different roles in the UK and in Copenhagen. And then I joined the dark side and went to work for Tesco. And at Tesco, I was there 12 years, where I looked after their global logistics products. So anything Tesco sourced overseas, it was my team's responsibility to get that into market, using a variety of different transport modes, be it ships, planes, trains, trucks, any which way. And then after 12 years of working with Britain's best loved supermarket, that's subjective, of course, I took the leap of faith and joined a startup business. I went from a business employing 400,000 people to a business that employed, I think when I joined, about 25. So a big change, a massive change. But I would say I haven't looked back, definitely looked back, best career decision I ever made. And earlier this year, joined by Dr. Krista Sachs. In terms of the agenda, I'll run through a little introduction to Zeus, what we do, how we do it, why we do it, our role in the decarbonisation journey. Regulatory pressures, is that a challenge? Is it an opportunity? Is it both? I think I've aired my views already in a work group yesterday. Leading topics for the next 5 to 10 years. Some of the key challenges, the role of the digital freight startup focused on sustainable freight, and then a little view on the next 10 years. Okay, so a bit of a whistle stop, I'm conscious of time. So Zeus, so who are we, what do we do? We're proud to call ourselves a tech business. We are a tech business which operates in the transport environment. So tech business first, as I say, sort of transport second to a degree. We were founded in 2019, so what's that, 4 years ago, by 2 young fellows, Jay Kanwar and Clemente Theotokos, and they literally graduated from university. The next day, Zeus was founded, and they had this desire, this ambition to create a business, create a startup, which was there to disrupt and positively disrupt and impact the transport industry. And thereby Zeus was born. And after a discovery phase of about 12 months, we launched our first product, and our first product is called Freight Connect. And what does Freight Connect do? Well, I suppose simply put, it's a digitally enabled marketplace. So it aggregates and connects, hence the Freight Connect name, connects that supply side and demand side. Certainly in the overland transport space, to be clear, we don't operate in the ocean space. It's very much overland, so it's road and rail. And what it allows us to do, it allows us to give our suppliers, our transport partners, the ability to utilize or maximize the utilization of their assets as best possible by linking them with the right transport requirements. And that, of course, then allows them to reduce their empty miles. And again, a topic we've touched on certainly yesterday is that empty mile reduction. Empty mile reduction has a positive environmental impact. Our shippers, what do the shippers get? Our customers, they get the ability to utilize multimodal solutions. So it's a multimodal solution offering we can use, linking rail and road, and alternative fuels as well. So currently that is HVO fuel that we offer up, but it's there is a strong focus on growing capability in the electric space. It's available for Freight Connect. We operate both UK and mainland Europe, but with an ambition to expand our geographical coverage into other areas, which will come in time. Our second product is Freight Command, and that was launched earlier this year. That's essentially it's our enterprise software solution, and this gives the user, so essentially the ideal customer persona is a manufacturer, and it gives them the digital power to manage their overland transport network super efficiently. So it automates many different tasks, and it applies a sustainable edge to their network as well. So how can they drive their carbon emissions down by utilizing Freight Command? Freight Command takes much of the existing functionality that we've developed through our Freight Connect product, and packaged up into an enterprise solution. Again, gives that user the breadth and the depth to increase their overall transport network and operations. So there is my unashamed plug of Zeus. If it interests you more, then please we can have a chat afterwards. So our role in leading as a sustainable business, I think the consistent thread that runs through both products and through the business is a focus on sustainable freight. It is our ambition, our desire, to help pioneer new universal standards that enables everyone across the industry to work together to reduce the environmental impact of global freight and promote a much greener supply chain. So that's our ambition, that's our mission, if you like. And we are supremely confident that this can be done through synthesizing the industry knowledge and expertise that we employ within the business, and linking that with the market leading technology innovation. So both of those two very clear capabilities and skill sets, bringing those together, where we're supremely confident we can create that, we can deliver on our vision about help pioneering new sustainable ways of working. We think both of those disciplines certainly go hand in hand. If we're going to go and do what we need to do, we absolutely have to have technology, innovation and capability, but also industry expertise as well. So we aggregate supply and demand, as we talked about with Freight Connect, bringing those two sides of the equation together. But we also see we have a responsibility to aggregate what is currently quite a disparate landscape. I think probably some of the discussions yesterday, I think, point towards the fact that there isn't total alignment in terms of what we need to do and how we need to do it. And we think Zeus and many other businesses across the industry can be there to try and knit that together, to try and bring some sense and alignment to what is quite opaque. So how do we do it? Well, that's the $64,000 question, and we've talked a little bit about it, and we'll talk a little bit about more about it going through. But our role is to try and build simple solutions. They might be quite complex when you scratch the surface, but simple solutions for our customers. And that's against quite a backdrop of complexity, of opaqueness, and I think building those solutions is only really possible through innovative thinking, through collaboration. We talked a lot about collaboration yesterday, and being incredibly resourceful. So the regulatory pressures, I mentioned before, is it a challenge, is it an opportunity, or is it both? We can see more and more regulatory pressures on the horizon, or requirements coming through on the horizon, and it's probably not a moment too soon. I'm quite convinced about the benefit of regulation and mandatory pressure. I aired some of my views yesterday in the breakout, and I think actually, to a degree, some of these regulatory requirements are probably too long in coming. I personally think. However, it is a challenge, and it's a relatively nascent challenge that we are trying to tackle here. Some will say, and I personally think that as an industry, we've perhaps been navel gazing for too long. And it's quite a big but. It is what it is. You know, I think we have to look forward and knuckle down and deliver what we need to deliver. I think the new requirements coming for the UK, so the sustainability disclosure requirements for Scope 3 emissions coming into effect next year, they are obviously a great thing. I think that will apply some additional pressure into the industry, but we are lagging behind our EU friends with regards to them launching their corporate sustainability reporting directive regime last year or earlier this year. It is a welcome regulation. And I think the way we see it is potentially it will just create a little bit of a surge in the market in terms of demand for low carbon solutions. And so those companies that have resisted a move towards low carbon solutions on the basis of costs and not wanting to take additional costs into the business, I think they may well be hit with a larger cost than if they had taken that bolder move earlier. And those organisations naturally who took that leap of faith, who went in feet first earlier on, I think they will certainly be ahead of the curve, and that will give them a commercial advantage going forward without a shadow of a doubt. I think it's possibly harsh to say that it's just all about navel gazing. That's probably is maybe over the top. And we think that part of the issue is the visibility of the problem. I think something I mentioned in one of our breakout groups yesterday, or I might have mentioned in passing in discussions one-on-one last night. I think part of the problem is sometimes many organisations don't know that they have a problem. You know, and we go forward with these wonderful solutions to fix this challenge, and they're thinking, well, I don't really have a challenge. I'm not aware of the challenge. And so for us, step one on this journey is about giving clarity and transparency and allowing companies to recognize the size of the issue. I think once you know the size of the issue, then you can start to put in place a plan, put in place the right solutions to be able to address that. But if you don't know an issue, why would you want to be going and making change when you're not aware of the issue that you need to address? So that's one of our I think kind of big steps going forward, and we see that opportunity. The opportunity is to ensure people recognise that there is an issue and the size of the being a little bit more data driven about that. Certainly than it is now. Low carbon vehicles. We know that the supply of that is still low. It's possibly lower than where it should be. And it's limited. So this potential surge in demand that we see with this new regulatory requirements coming through, there could be a real supply issue. So the supply demand issue is going to tip out of favour of the users, I would say. And I think you know, regulation talks about it, and I mentioned it yesterday, kind of this carrot and stick approach. I think possibly we've been too generous with the carrot, and I think we need to start wielding the stick a little bit more. I think the stick needs to be a bit bigger, but it needs to be a bit uglier, and it probably needs to be wielded a little bit harder. That is a personal view, and I appreciate it may not be shared, but I think we're you know, the size of the problem, the complexity of the problem, I think demands sort of immediate attention. And I think for too long we've been asking nicely, will you address the problem? How are you going to address the problem? And I think that's possibly not have the impact that we want to get to. So I think regulatory requirements, mandatory requirements is that big stick in disguise. And I think more of it quicker, I think, will help start to push the agenda much harder. But this, of course, relies on the government to essentially roll out these regulations. I think listening to the expert, listening to the industry bodies to be able to make the right decisions at the right time as well. And one would argue, have they listened? All the time, possibly not, but again, slightly subjective and divisive. So leading topics for the next 5 to 10 years. Again, personal view from Zeus. It's this list I've got here. It's certainly not exhaustive, and it's certainly not ordered in order of importance. There is an argument to say that data sharing for emission reporting possibly should be at the top of the list. This is the one again which highlights the problem at hand. It highlights the size of the problem. I think what's really clear is, and I mentioned it in slide 4, is the availability of alternative fuels and electric vehicles is still short of where it needs to be. But I think this does not stop the industry from being able to make significant positive inroads in terms of reducing transport carbon emissions. I think efficiency in the current physical transport will be a mitigator of cost. What do I mean by that? I think, in terms of good operational management, right? So how we run our network, how we execute operations, there's still a ton of benefit and advantages to be made by doing that better. What does that mean? I think we talk about reducing empty miles. How do we leverage lane matching opportunities? Lane matching is something that is at the core of what we do within Zeus as well. And we know through surveys, interviews we've done across our supplier base, that working with Zeus and being able to identify those opportunities to reduce their empty miles has certainly helped them increase utilization and make them a far healthier going concern. So it does work. It is there, but still a lot of work to do. We've got a big, vast network of rail capability across both UK and Europe, probably underutilized. It is underutilized. There is an obvious and I think relatively easy way of being able to reduce carbon emissions. I think driving style, again, we touched on that yesterday. Are trucks driven the most effectively they can be? Not sure, I don't think they are. Again, some simple things that can be done there to, again, reduce the impact on the environment, vehicle aerodynamics, and again, just improved load planning. So again, we talked about collaboration yesterday, being able to share trucking space, if you like, takes trucks off the road, can only be a good thing. But good transport management, the real basics, that can be really beneficial both from an environmental perspective, but again, for these commercial organizations, from a cost perspective. I think the two go hand in hand there. And that's even before we talk about HVO and electric vehicles. There's simple things that we can do, or certainly simpler things that we can do before we even start talking about alternative fuels and electric vehicles. But to really start around that, then we do have to get into that space, much greater use of alternative fuels, and again, a bigger and faster rollout of electric vehicles. Zeus's view on alternative fuels we've placed our bets on HVO. We think it's an excellent bridging solution to the move towards electrification. The reductions that you can generate through HVO use is significant, and it's also a drop-in fuel, again, which makes it easier to deploy. But the challenge does remain availability, and we know that availability of HVO, for example, in mainland Europe and even the UK, is limited. But again, there is the use of mass balancing. So mass balancing as a way of being able to deploy HVO quickly and easily is I think a solution which needs to be adopted more across the industry and accepted across the industry. But there is still a cynical view with regard to mass balancing, which makes me quite irritated. But again, it is what it is. And why is that? I think there's a bit around traceability, authentication, auditing, etc. All of these things can be overcome. It's just a good process. But again, there is the subject of cost. HVO fuel is more expensive than diesel. What we do see is there is generally a resistance within the commercial world towards higher costs. Again, frustrating. I've mentioned frustrations too many times a day. I apologise. But this whole mass balancing, just to finish up on this, and I mentioned it to somebody yesterday, is you know, I speak with companies who will dismiss mass balanced HVO road freight solutions because they can't trace it. You know, is it truly authentic? Yet that same company is quite willing to work with some large companies in the ocean freight space on their eco delivery products, which is just mass balancing on a mass scale. So again, this, I think it points towards unnecessary inconsistencies and double standards. And again, these type of things are a barrier to progress. It's a barrier to pushing forward with what we need to do, and all of which certainly don't help the cause. So some of the key challenges, again, in no specific order, you know, scalable and flexible fleets and biofuels. I've talked about that before, kind of limited availability, and it's generally reliant upon single hauliers, lots of single hauliers, independent hauliers across the length and breadth of UK, Europe. The certainty and assurance around biofuel use. You know, we've got the GLEC framework and their recommendations. We can talk about using primary data as well. You know, monitoring and auditing HVO fuel use, particularly with respect to mass balancing, creates uncertainty in adopting these fuel types. I mentioned that before, it's frustration, despite them being bona fide options to decarbonise. And again, this resistance to certain practices is merely holding us back in our journey to deliver reduced carbon emissions. Electric truck investments, infrastructure, you know, there is still all the discussion about where to locate charging stations, etc. Who's going to pay for it? Is the government going to go and support private investment through grants and rebates, etc., being really clear around that? I think without that clarity, then I think the incentive to invest by the private sector, I think, is certainly diminished. I think it certainly diminishes that desire. Cost, right? So who pays? And again, that indecision, navel gazing, I don't think solves the cost problem. It's a challenge that requires clear and accountable collaboration. I think governments they have to listen to the industry bodies, they have to listen to the commercial side of things, and they have to commit to the cause. Government-backed and funded initiatives will inject confidence into the private sector, confidence to make the desired investments with the reassurance of government-backed investment policy to incentivize that whole private sector. So in this commercial and kind of capitalistic world that we live in, cost will remain an overriding issue, sadly, but understandably. And I think government action and intervention is an absolute must. Government indecision and policy, very much linked to cost apportionment. I don't think we help ourselves. The government doesn't help us, it doesn't help themselves. And it was mentioned yesterday, back in September, everybody knows, our own Prime Minister, Rishi, he rolled back the decision to delay the phase out of petrol and diesel cars from 2030 to 2035. Again, flip-flopping, and that creates further uncertainty, I think, in a sea of uncertainty, which isn't good. Add to this, that means our path to net zero is very much back-ended. So we see this again, this sort of bulbous delivery of net zero really being back-ended. All that means is actually that we're going to generate more emissions than if we had followed that glide path that we originally set out. So I think faith in our own government and faith in governments around the world, I think, is probably a little bit low, certainly with respect to climate action, and that's largely because of the decision, this whole flip-flopping piece. And then kicking the can down the road, right? Very simple. I still think there is many organisations who aren't leaning into the issue. They're not owning the issue to hand. It's not my problem yet, right? They may not say that on the outside, but certainly on the inside, that's very much the narrative. But the problem is this yet piece is getting closer and closer and closer. And again, by pushing that problem out is merely creating a larger challenge for us. So the role of the digital freight startup focused on sustainable freight. So while vehicle efficiency interventions offer up marginal improvements today, I think those logistics interventions, some of those that I mentioned before about good network planning, good linking of the dead legs and reducing empty miles, they can offer significant savings. And when you layer on top of that the alternative fuels, HVO 100, biomethane, etc., you know, the savings are significant. We can realize some significant reductions in terms of our emissions. So when you look at Zeus, where are we placing our bet? What's our future in terms of that short, medium-term future approach? It's absolutely a mix of being good in terms of execution. So how do we help customers with their lane matching requirements, taking out those empty miles? How do we utilize more rail? So that modal shift piece, and then utilizing more HVO and biomethane. Our long-term focus is, of course, on battery electric, and want to be clear on that. It is battery electric as opposed to hydrogen fuel cell electric vehicles. We think that we're further down the road in terms of the development of that technology. So that's something we continue to push, and we continue to scour the UK and Europe for finding new partners that have this capability or will be investing in this capability and bringing them on board into the Zeus family. So quite a simple. It's quite a simple role we play. It's essentially trying to take all of that good stuff, the good practice, the good technologies that are out there, and packaging them up into a solution, a digital solution for our customers. So we are already unlocking significant environmental benefits in terms of what we do. I mentioned there about the different opportunities, even before you get to battery electric vehicles, significant savings, and we've been able to demonstrate that with three of our clients already. So Procter & Gamble, AB InBev, and Diageo, through some operational trials we've done with them, which includes using more rail, includes using a HVO and a road and rail combination, and that's been able to empirically unlock significant savings, which is great. So it's good to see these companies really coming to the party, albeit slightly slowly, I would say. I think the challenge now is for them to continue to commit to that and have a wider rollout. The challenge for Zeus and the challenge for many other operators in the market is how do you do that and mitigate that cost impact? Because again, that commercial nature of these businesses come through. Really like the environmental opportunities or the opportunity to reduce our environmental impact, but we don't really want to pay much more. That's a challenge in itself. So I think that puts the burden on operators like Zeus to use technology, to use that innovation to be able to mitigate the cost increase. The next 10 years and beyond, I've got a couple of slides here. It's kind of obvious it is a race against time. We know that, that's abundantly clear. I think we are going to need a very, very strong final lap. It's going to need to be a final lap of Mo Farah-esque proportions, super quick. I took some information off the Climate Action Tracker, which rates countries' net zero plans against the Paris Agreement. I pulled out 6 countries. So you look at their ratings, these 6 countries: UK, America, Japan, Germany, India, and China. Of those 6, the best we've got is insufficient. The worst we've got is highly insufficient. It's not a great read. It's quite a tough read, in fact. And you've got the US, India, and China, big contributors to climate change, and 2 out of those 3 are rated as highly insufficient. So a load of work to do. Big task ahead of us. And actually, that final lap. Maybe we need some performance enhancing substances as well to be able to deliver this record breaking lap. I didn't say that. So next 10 years, yeah. So I think it's quite clear from us, quite simple. We do need commitment from every part of the government and industry. That's absolutely critical. I think the former, i.e. the government, being really key to that in terms of both policy and also investment. Investment definitely stimulates confidence within the private sector. Again, going back to the mandatory requirements, regulations, really important, and they need to be in place quickly. I must point out, I'm conscious that prime mover, I think in this environment means the tractor unit. I mean prime mover first out of the blocks, by the way. Okay. So again, we should be rewarding, recognizing those people who have taken that leap of faith, been bold enough to go into this space. Stronger industry collaboration. Again, I won't go into that too much. We talked about it a lot yesterday, data sharing, co-opetition. And I think what our commitment is to continue to try and educate. So how do we educate our customers on what the size of their issue is and how they can start to tackle that? And again, innovation, really key. Lots of big challenges out there, lots of complex problems to deliver, and so we need to be very innovative in that approach, along with the rest of the industry. It's not just on our shoulders. We have broad shoulders, but not that broad. I think. So thank you.